Good day to members of the media and the listening public. The quarterly GDP estimates indicate that Bermuda's economy continued to expand and demonstrate strong economic performance in 2023. In 2022, the Ministry of Finance forecasted that the economy would grow by 4% to 4.5% in 2023. Quarterly GDP estimate figures reflect that our economy is on track to meet those estimates. The economy continued to grow positively in the fourth quarter of 2023. After adjusting for inflation, the GDP in constant prices increased by 4.7%, marking the fifth consecutive quarter of GDP growth in Bermuda's economy. Real GDP in the first quarter of 2023 has been revised upwards from the 4.5% increase reported to a 5.3% increase. The second quarter GDP has also been revised upwards from a reported 3.9% increase to a 4.4% increase. Furthermore, third quarter GDP has been revised downward from a 8.3% increase to a 6.4% increase in quarterly GDP. Final consumption increased by 0.3% during the fourth quarter of 2023. The increase was driven by increases in government expenditure. The results for government expenditure showed that consumption increased 2.3% during the quarter, due primarily to higher expenditure on wages and salaries. Meanwhile, household expenditure remained relatively static, dipping 0.2 percentage point to total $801.8 million year over year. Employment income in the fourth quarter was 9.3% above 2022 levels. All major industries reported increases in employee remuneration, with the exception of the construction industry. The increase in employment income by industry reveals the following performance. Hotels and restaurants increased by 16.7%. International business increased by 15.4%. Business services increased by 14%. Transportation and communication increased by 8.9%. Public administration increased by 5.4%. Wholesale and retail increased by 3.4%. Banking, insurance, and real estate activities increased by 3.4%. And construction abated 1.2%. With respect to business investment, capital formation declined 3.3% to $211.8 million. Investment related to construction fell 5.4%, while investment in machinery and equipment decreased 1.3% due to lower imports of industrial machinery, computers, and equipment. The 2023 fourth quarter balance of payments reported that Bermuda's trade surplus with the rest of the world was recorded at $216 million, representing a $46 million increase year over year. Services transactions realized a surplus of $92 million, expanding by $19 million from the previous year. The deficit of goods account widened by $14 million to $336 million. Additionally, Bermuda's primary income account surplus expanded by $54 million year over year, climbing to $527 million in the fourth quarter. Furthermore, at the end of the fourth quarter of 2023, the stock of foreign assets held by Bermudan residents registered above its stock of foreign liabilities by an estimated $4.1 billion. The net international investment position decreased by $539 million compared with the third quarter of 2023. Total business registrations increased by 1% year over year, bringing the complete business register to 16,269. 232 new businesses were registered in Bermuda during the fourth quarter of 2023. In conclusion, the fourth quarter of 2023 generally saw strong growth in Bermuda's economy. The government will continue to facilitate Bermuda's economic expansion by creating or facilitating a business environment that will allow businesses to thrive. The government's Economic Development Strategy 2023 to 2027 outlines the economic priorities that will drive initiatives required for our prosperous economy. For more information, please review the fourth quarter 2023 quarterly GDP by expenditure estimates and the fourth quarter 2023 quarterly balance of payments and international investment position publications available on the Department of Statistics website at gov.bm. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We now welcome questions from the media.
Thanks, Minister, and thanks for having us. I might have missed it, so there was a list of percentage points that you gave. Was that year over year?
Correct. So in terms of employee income by industry?
Yes, there was a list of about 10 different ones. I was just checking if that was year over year.
Correct. That's year over year.
I guess, I mean, the last time we were here, we heard that we were surpassing 2019. I guess looking broadly past the pandemic, how does the size of Bermuda's economy in terms of GDP look in comparison with, say, over the past 10-year period?
I don't have the 10-year trend in front of me, but what I would say is that the pre-pandemic levels, so in 2019, our economy was robust. We have exceeded that particular level. The recession that we experienced as a result of the pandemic, we are now fully out of that recession. The 4 quarters of quarterly growth indicates that a recession is not in our midst and that we are trending in a strong direction.
I mean, figures obviously you wouldn't be able to rattle off just off the top of your head, but can you give us sort of an assessment in terms of the long-term size of the economy? Again, going back to the good years previous to the pandemic.
So 2019 would have been one of the strongest where we would have had in that particular 10-year period. And so we have exceeded that particular level. If you look at the overall size of the economy, it is much stronger than we were. The economy has expanded beyond the level that we were pre-pandemic.
Okay.
Certainly.
You mentioned that the third quarter figures, there was a revised downturn on those. Did you mention what that could be attributed to?
So it's as a result of the data collection methods. And so sometimes when you don't have the data coming in a timely manner, you're required to make a number of estimates and assumptions. And revisions are technical revisions or administrative revisions that we do every quarter. And so you would have seen that I would have indicated revisions for the first quarter, which would have been revising numbers upwards. We would have gave revisions for the second quarter, which also would have revised numbers upwards. And then the revision for the third quarter would have saw numbers abate a bit. But typically, the revisions are more conservative than the actual numbers. And you will see historically revisions revised upwards most times.
I see. I guess in terms of growth, outside of international business domestically, where are we seeing the strongest areas of growth?
And so the way in which the expenditure approach is actually compiled is not compiled on an industry-by-industry basis. When we release our annual GDP, I'll be able to clearly articulate which of our industries have expanded and which of our industries remain static or have contracted.
In light of that, I guess I wanted to specifically ask about retail and how what's on their wish list, your assessment for how retail is doing, a big employer of Bermudians. Would you be able to speak to that in this context?
Well, if you look at the trend regarding wholesale and retail as an industry, the overall economic performance is not directly correlated with the numbers you will see in the retail sales index. So you look at retail sales and you say that retail sales is actually declining. But then when you look at the historical annual GDP data by industry for hotel and retail, the economic performance isn't as bad as what is indicated in the retail sales index. And the retail sales index also doesn't give the population an indication of the profitability of the retail sector. You can have declining sales, but the retail sector can still be performing in a profitable manner.
A bit tangential, but I wondered if it was possible to get any update on, we had some ambitious goals for growing the workforce. If there's any remarks you can give us on that, how that's doing.
And so the best measure that we'll use is the annual employment survey data. That will be the information that we use to provide us with clarity on how our workforce is actually expended. We are doing more frequent labor force surveys. That has indicated to us that we are trending in a positive direction as it pertains to the growth in employment and also us having lower unemployment rates.
But thanks for that, sir. Cheers.
Good afternoon, Minister.
Good afternoon.
You spoke about the economy being stronger than the pre-pandemic economy. Mm-hmm. Is economic growth matching the increase in the cost of living?
Two separate concepts. But here's what I'll generally say. The economy is improving and expanding, but the cost of living continues to remain a challenge for both businesses and households, and we are actually cognizant of that. Both things can happen in the same period of time. You can have a strong economy, but the purchasing power of both businesses and consumers can be diminished by inflation within your economy. Inflation rate has abated a bit, but that is not what people are actually feeling in their actual pockets. And so I understand that there's a disconnect between what somebody may feel from the earned household economy, meaning their purchasing power, and the overall performance of the economy. But what you would see when I looked at the employment data is that salaries are progressing and there are more people working.
But obviously, if salaries are not progressing, or in some sectors not progressing to the rate of the cost of growth of the cost of living, increase of the cost of living, then one can impact the other. Mm-hmm. Is there a way, or is it to correlate those kind of statistics to give us that kind of picture?
Well, we do put out the annual CPI, and so we see how the cost of living is actually progressing in Bermuda. We have that particular data, and then we have the data in terms of economic performance. And so you can put one on top of the other, but I'm not sure what type of correlation will be made by comparing the cost of living and the economic performance. I think the more important measure is, household income and expenditure, and we are in the midst of actually conducting that survey. That survey will let us know, relative to past years, what percentage of individuals' income goes on certain expenditure items within the household, and that will give us the best measure as to how households are faring in this particular economy.
And when are we expecting that? The report for the household income?
I have the Director of Statistics here, and I'll just ask if there's a preliminary date as it pertains to releasing household income and expenditure data.
We're hoping to have that data collection will go until at least the end of this year, because we're collecting data for an entire year to capture seasonality. And then after that, we have to process the data. So we're thinking perhaps within the first 6 months of 2025, we should be able to have some preliminary data.
Thank you.
So to be clear, the survey will go on to the end of this calendar year, and by the second quarter of 2025, we should have preliminary estimates as to the data collected in the household income and expenditure data, which will give us a strong indication of how householders are actually faring in this economy.
Thank you. Is Bermuda's economy hinging on the success of international business?
International business is a key industry within our economy and will remain a key industry within our economy. Because international business is our largest industry, certainly it has significant importance to the performance of our economy. The word hinging, I'm not sure if that's the best term to use, but I will say that our economy is heavily reliant on having a strong international business sector.
Okay. The international and local finance and insurance sectors, they operate to run successful businesses and make good returns. That's why they are here. If those sectors are doing well and their success is a big driver of our economy, what part does government play in that? To what degree can you claim their success as your success?
I think the success of the economy is a product of the environment that the business and the economy are actually operating in. And so if we didn't have an environment that was conducive to growth, then certain companies can't grow. If we didn't have a proper regulatory environment, then companies can't operate. If we didn't have a proper tax system in place, then it makes it unprofitable for companies to operate in Bermuda. And so there's a number of things that the key roles that the government play in terms of ensuring that we have a proper environment. When we look at the growth and expansion of our hotel industry, we see investment in place, and on the backside of that investment, they're asking government to assist with to alleviate certain taxes that they pay. What if they say that based off of the level of taxes that is imposed upon us, then we cannot invest? And so you have to ask the question, does government, the investment orders that we put in place facilitate further investment? I believe it does, and I believe that is positive for our entire economy. And so we can go industry by industry and look to see how the government actually supports that particular industry, but the government provides a suite of services that businesses actually benefit from. And it makes a conducive business environment or a business ecosystem that allows companies to actually thrive.
Okay. Shadow Finance Minister Douglas DeCuto previously suggested that Bermuda's economy had fallen so far that the only way was up. That was after your previous quarterly GDP report. And he said that the rest of the world recovered much more quickly from the COVID economy than us. How do you respond to that?
It's an incorrect statement. If I tell you that we have exceeded pre-pandemic levels, then you can't compare me to when I was in a slump, in a recession after the pandemic, because we've actually exceeded those levels, and so it is actually kind of a false measure to do that particular comparison. If you look at the growth rates projected for the developed countries around the world, Bermuda has exceeded those growth rates. If you look at the 2023 growth rates for advanced economies, Bermuda's growth rate will exceed that particular growth rate. So it's not fair to say that other countries have progressed past the growth rates that Bermuda has progressed, because the data doesn't support that. Even if you look at Latin American and Caribbean countries and just isolate that part of the world, what you will find is that Bermuda's growth rates has exceeded those growth rates.
Okay. You did mention there was 232 new businesses registered here in quarter 4.
Correct.
23. What sectors are those?
We don't have them actually list of procedure by set, but I will speak
What's
to...
international and what's locally registered? What's international?
So for the businesses registered in Bermuda, there were 28 local, 183 exempt, 21 exempt partnership companies.
Thank you. And just moving on to something that's very current, the government is planning a tax cut to offset the impact of rising Belco bills and recent decisions of the regulatory authority. That means government's budgeted tax revenues will fall. Are you, at this time, able to give us any insight into how government will cover that shortfall, if they'll be using the sinking fund, if they'll be using the excess borrowing fund?
I think if the Ministry of Finance has accepted that the government has the fiscal space to provide this particular relief to the citizens of Bermuda. And so I think that the Minister of Finance can certainly elaborate on the source of the funds, but from a general assessment standpoint, we believe that there is wiggle room in the fiscal position of the government, performing better than actually expected, which allows us to now move forward with supporting the citizens of Bermuda by providing this tax cut.
Okay, well, that may answer. I do want to still ask the question, but the OBA Scott Pearman said that the economy is not strong enough to sustain such a tax cut of up to 50% on energy. You would not agree with that?
I don't agree with that statement. I don't agree that Scott Pearman has seen the numbers to make that particular assessment of government's fiscal position, and I don't accept that our economy is not strong. When we talk about our economy being strong, we talk about the industries within our economy, we talk about the expenditure, we talk about the elements that are listed in the these publications that we put out, the GDP publications that pertains to the measures of our economy. There are areas of our economy that are a concern and will remain a concern moving forward, and that's why we have an economic development strategy to move us to having a sustainable economy. But it is incorrect to put this notion out that our economy is not strong. You can use those terms if we were in a recession. You can use those terms if our economy had abated below pre-pandemic levels. We can use those terms if we were still in a period of actual recovery. We are actually in a period of expansion and growth, so those terms are not accurate. If our economy was doing bad, I would have to stand here and say to the people of Bermuda that our economy is doing bad, and those terms can be used. But our economy is not doing bad, it's actually performing well, and those comments are not appropriate.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. That is the final question from the media. Minister, do you have any closing remarks?
Yes, the economic data that was have 5 consecutive quarters of economic growth and a strong economic performance in 2023. This was GDP by expenditure. The next publication that we put out as it pertains to GDP will be the GDP by production approach that would let us know exactly how each and every industry is doing. The government remains committed to ensuring that we put policies in place that allow us to have a robust economy. We understand that the cost of living is impacting households, and like we've seen with the government making a decision to reduce taxes on fuel, we will continue to put measures in place to help citizens of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes the press conference. Thank you all for joining, and have a great day.